Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia and I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. Looks like this is going to be week 6 of the quarantine mustache experiment. Things are coming along swimmingly. I've been advised by fellow mustachian experts that I should be using creatine or something else, biotin, and healthy vitamin E and eating well if I want my beard and my mustache to come in the best that it can be. If you guys have other beard advice, please leave those notes in the comments and we'll see how long this mustache will survive. In other quarantine LitRPG news, I have leveled up my cooking skills again once more this week. I've made fettuccine alfredo from scratch. So the sauce was apparently just not actually as hard as I thought it was ever going to be. It's essentially a fancy mac and cheese sauce. So I'm like, oh, there you go. Not that hard. Oh, also this week, special thanks to Dave Wilmarth for sending in the rare ghost version of a Fibble plushie. Here he is on camera. You can see him in all his ghostly variety here. He's delightful. I don't know. He's green, so it doesn't show well on the green screen. But still, me and him will be hanging out in the Halloween episode of the podcast in October. That's for sure. But of course, that plushie I think is still available on Amazon somewhere if you want to get your own version of it with the actual, sent to your house if it's available. But anyways, thanks Dave Wilmarth for the special gift. This week in the LitRPG, though, I have 6 new reviews for you here on the show. 3 from me and 3 from our correspondent. We have Ruthless, the Completionist Chronicles book number 5. Also Derelict book number 1, Repel Borders, a dungeon core adventure. And then from Ian's Picks of the Week, we have, also for me, another online, All Hail the Queen. And then from Ian's Picks of the Week, we have War Chief, a Tusk story. Life Reset, Human Resource New Era Online book number 4, and Dungeon World 5, a Dungeon Coins Perks from Ian's Picks of the Week. There you go. Before we get into any of those reviews, of course, we're going to go right into LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with a nice deal for you folks at home. Ta Wong, author of the System Apocalypse series, is doing a discount for another series of his called The Gamer's Wish. And the first book in that series is available for 99 cents on all the platforms that it's published on and all the territories in, or about the local equivalent. It'll be up for 99 cents until May the 12th, 2020, or again, whatever the local currency equivalent of that is in US dollars. So they're available in the show notes if you want to check out all the places you can find them. Remember, this is a story that's actually being published wide, so it's not just on Amazon, it's also on Apple, Kobo, Nook, Google Play, all those other wonderful platforms. So there you go. In other LitRPG news, we have Dakota Kraut. He was interviewed by the Failing Upward podcast. That's actually probably just the name of the episode. It's EthanFreckleton.com. It's his podcast. But I guess the title episode is called Failing Upward. Dakota talks about how he failed upwards, doing the wrong things when he started to write, but he found success and invested in his own future success, going through from writing his own series to helping other writers go full-time through Mountain Dew Press. The LitRPG podcast actually even gets mentioned about the 35-ish mark on the show. So it's nice to like, hey, that's me. He's talking about me. And super fan of Dakota Crowd, and of course his work, and always wish him the best. And it's nice to hear like a nice story from Dakota about his success and the things he's learned, and him passing on that wisdom to other people who wish for success. So go give it a listen. We'll link in the show notes for you to listen to. In other little bit news, we actually have, by the time most people are listening to this, the Mechanical Crafter book number 1, written by yours truly, Ramon Mejia. It should be out. I put together a small little video just kind of showing off some of the cover art as it was being created. I'll put that up on for the video version of the podcast. You can also check it out on the Ramon Mejia Facebook page or YouTube page to keep this podcast and the LitRPG podcast either way. And as you're watching this, I can read you the novel blurb. Hopefully that'll get you interested in it. He was given another chance at life from the infinite possibilities available. He chose to come back as a mechanical man, a metal man named Repair. Now he has to contend with a research lab full of gnomes who say he owes them for bringing him back to death, a strange city that is going through a mechanical industrial revolution, and adversaries that want to see him broken into pieces. Full of action, adventure, and of course crafting, join Repair on his adventure through the strange fantasy world where magic and technology meets. He'll dive into the city's dungeon to kill monsters for XP and gather resources to figure out the solutions to his problems, because if he doesn't become more powerful, he'll not only lose his freedom, but the life of his friend. The Mechanical Crafter is a LitRPG adventure. So there you go. It's out now. Go check it out. I had a great time writing it and coming up with crafting mechanics with help of Charles Dean, and give a couple of shout outs to some authors who helped make this novel possible, and of course supporters of the podcast and supporters of our RMHA Patreon page. So go check it out. Okay, on to stuff that is out now. Stuff that haven't had a chance to read it yet. Came out. And that includes Aberrant Quest, the Blickround book number 2, out for you to enjoy if you enjoyed book number 1. War Singer, the Archimia Online Chronicles book number 4, is out now as well. Book number 5 in that series is actually up for pre-order, I think later this year. Of course, Mechanical Crafter, book number 1, which we mentioned already. Also out now is Giant Lands, the Pal Tree Planet, book number 1. As is the Hunter's Paralog, Des Ex Death Trap, and Lightning Disciple, Heirloom Earth, book number 1. The second book in the Tusk and Blade series, Exodus Online, is out for you to enjoy. Bio Dungeon Symbiote, the Body's Dungeon, book number 1. This is actually a collaboration between Jeffrey Falconog, author of the Silent Ninja Chronicles, and Jonathan Brooks, who has written a number of very successful dungeon core stories. They collaborated. They came up with this one, and I'm looking forward to reading it personally. Also out now is Force Cultivation, the Heavenly Throne, book number 1, a LitRPG Wuxia series, and Wuxia series. And Dragon Boards, a 4X strategy series. Warlords of the Circle C, book number 2, is out for you to enjoy. I think I read book number 1. I read some of the books. Sometimes it's hard to remember, and I think I enjoyed it. So there you go. Also out is Civ CEO4, a 4X lit series, the Accidental Champion. Our corresponding Ian Mitchell, he's actually read the series and he's really enjoyed it, this one. And Queen in the Mud, which looks like it's a monster re-story for you to enjoy. In new LitRPG audiobooks, we have quite a few new releases as well this week, including Chaos Rising, The Realms, book number 6, Dark Wizard's Case, also World Quest, Coding Freedom, book number 3 is out, Dungeon Crisis, Glendoria Awakens Trilogy, book number 2 is out for you to enjoy as an audiobook. The Quell, The City Rising, is out as an audiobook, as is the Enemy Trope System, Stone vs. Viper, book number 12, is out for you to enjoy as an audiobook. In upcoming LitRPG, this is just where we read a bunch of stuff that's coming out in the near future, released into August. And that includes May 12th, it'll be Shattered Sword, Eternal Online, book number 1. May the 12th, Luminous, book number 4. May the 17th, it'll be Biomedical Self-Engineering book. On May 20th, Challenger's Call, book number 5. May 20th as well will be The Alchemist, book number 1 from Basile Mahango. From Mountain Press, the second book in the Space Seasons book series will be out on May 22nd. May 28th, it'll be Legendary Dungeon Seed. May 31st, it'll be Path of Alchemy, Flame Online, book number 1. book number 4 in that series. June the 4th, there'll be 4 Beheadings and a Funeral, the 9th book in the Good Guy series. New to the list, it'll be Rise of Omniscience, book number 6, will be out on June the 7th. On June the 9th, it'll be Reality Benders, book number 6. Also into the list, it'll be June the 30th for A Cat and His Human, Leagues of Losers, book number 1, written by Michael Antonoff. You might have read some of his other LitRPG series. July the 1st will be the 9th book in the System Apocalypse series. July the 8th, it'll be the second book in the Project Stellar series. July the 9th, it'll be The Legends Online, book number 6. July the 14th, Eternal Online, book number 2. July the 14th, second book in the Life in Exile series called Washer's Question. July the 31st, Arrow of Justice. August the 8th, War of the Posers, The Bad Guys, book number 4. I think that changed. So there you go. We'll skip that one. And August the 18th, it'll be Intellectium, the first book in that series, August the 18th. So there you go. All the stuff that's coming out in the near future. On to new releases and reviews. Okay, first up this week, it's going to be Ruthless, the Completionist Chronicles, book number 5, written by Dakota Kraut. It is $5.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. I don't think I looked at the actual page count, but it's probably about 450 pages. Here is the author's description. Enemies emerge everywhere. Stagnation starts seeming standard. Results require ruthlessness. Joe has been moving deeper into his study of ritual magic and further away from his combat team. He's learning more and more, often than not, needs to choose between his research and squad leadership. Improving the town is a big, huge help to the guild, and they have been pushing to increase their power. The rapid increase have not gone unnoticed. The guild receives an ultimatum delivered by assassins and signed with blood. If they continue to accrue power and fame, each and every person with a grievance against the guild will come to smash the town back to square one. With tensions coming to an head, all Joe wants to do is leave it all behind and reach the next area. He flat refuses the guild when they ask him to devise lethal options to use against the gathering army. But when the time comes, even Joe isn't sure if he'll step into the limelight and show everyone exactly how ruthless he can be. This is always a delight for series. I don't think I've ever read anything that Dakota Kraut has written that I haven't enjoyed, and this series is definitely no exception. This is a pun-filled adventure with Joe. This time he gets an interesting class advancement, and he defends the guild base and researches new ritual techniques. Like the previous books, it's a great little adventure, and I also only see burn through this in a single sitting. One of the things about Dakota's writing in general is that it keeps getting better and better and better as he develops these systems, and you can always tell that he has a huge, very well defined and researched game mechanic system. And in this particular book in particular, it was fun to see the class expansion for the main character, which is kind of why I bumped that up in my enjoyment level. And anytime I'm just so enjoying a book that I can read in one sitting is always a marker for it being great. And that's what the book gets. It gets a score of 8 out of 10. I had a great time with it. And that's Ruthless, the Completionist Chronicles, book number 5 with a score of 8 out of 10 for me. And next up we have Derelict, book number 1, Repel the Borders, a LitRPG dungeon core adventure written by Dean Hennigar. It is 275 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. One captain's death might turn out to be humanity's best chance at survival. As humanity expands into the stars, it discovers the universe is a hostile place. When Captain Slater of the USS Franklin is assigned to a deep space reconnaissance mission, his ship is destroyed by an unknown alien race. Much to his surprise, Slater isn't killed. He's transformed. He's now a derelict, a consciousness bound to an old vessel. Slater must quickly adapt to his new existence before raiders, alien armies, and a mysterious force seeks to destroy him for a second and final time. Okay, this story essentially starts as a space opera story, a space opera battle gone wrong. Humans lose to an alien ship and explodes it to kill the alien boarders. Then the captain wakes up to find himself as a dungeon core with a parasitic interstellar xeno-infestation, or pixie, as a guide. Normal dungeon tropes are there with sci-fi explanations about why dungeons exist in space and why adventurers will come aboard and fight monsters inside of it. The game mechanics are fairly standard with sci-fi twists and explanations. Leveling and growing as resources are collected, the ability to create monsters, traps, and treasure to lure in space adventures, the ability to upgrade the ships and various functions of the ship. The progression mechanics are kind of similar to the futuristic Dungeon Core series, if you've ever read that. Overall, it's a good, solid dungeon core story with all the RPG progression you expect, with essentially a sci-fi space twist to keep things interesting. The story itself kind of follows the same pattern of a lot of dungeon core stories. It's entertaining, and the sci-fi stuff is just kind of different enough, I think, to keep me interested. Gets a score of 7.5 out of 10. It's a solid story, solid dungeon core story. So that's Derelict, book number 1, Repel Borders, with a score of 7.5 out of 10. And next we have another online, All Hail the Queen, written by Tara Snover. It has 177 pages, $5.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. Hell. This was absolute hell. Every day was held at 2244, an NPC with a massive multiplayer online role-playing game known as AO. Just another prisoner of the game like all NPCs. She never expected her wish for freedom to be granted in such a grandiose way. A big event in the game leads to her suddenly becoming a mother, a hellspawn, and a queen, all within a matter of moments. Now tasked with maintaining a balance between keeping the game masters happy and trying to take down all of AO, 2244 discovers that there's much more to this game than just slavery and item upgrades. Okay, this is honestly not worth the almost $6 price tag. For 177 pages, but it is a pretty decent KU read, actually rather good. The story is about an NPC that expands beyond her system-defined role as an item shopkeeper into a villain. The AI in this story are actually copied minds of actors and paid people, and the AI are tortured by the system if they don't roleplay or fulfill their roles. But with a new expansion in the MMO, the main character gets a change in designation and becomes a free roaming villain that has to create an army while not pissing off the GMs by going out of her new role and deciding if she's going to break the game or try to take it over. It's a satirical take on the awakened AI concept. On the game mechanic side of things, this is definitely a GameLit story, not a LitRPG story. But again, it's not advertising as a LitRPG story, so it's not getting a negative review for that. It's essentially all the MMO stuff is told from this NPC's perspective. So you get to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that normal players in the world wouldn't necessarily see, including like all the torture stuff. And it's not like super graphic torture. It's more along the lines of like the NPCs are sent stimulations that are torturous, like feeling like they're drowning or feeling like they're being pricked with needles or burned on their fingertips or whatever the case is. And so it's not like super graphic torture, but it's simulated for them. And that's how the system keeps them in line. Personally, I wasn't a big fan of that aspect. It didn't quite make sense in my brain about why an AI or why the game system would essentially need to do that with AIs that it actually controls as part of itself. But it sets up the tone and sets up the stakes for the NPC, so I get why it exists. It just kind of conflicted my brain a little bit. The game exciting things. Nothing's really new. It's an MMO. It's a virtual reality MMO. And so if you've read any of these kind of stories before in LitRPG, it's kind of the same thing. It's just told from a slightly different perspective. There are no crunchy like details here, which is again why it's not really LitRPG. But there are game mechanics in the story that the main character uses and exploits, and bugs and different perspectives of items and using them intelligently to advance herself. She does get levels in the game, but they're not earned levels. She essentially is advanced to like level 100 with all the prerequisite powers and abilities and things she wants to choose. So there really is no RPG progression for her in that respect, which is again why it's not LitRPG and instead is GameLit. But there are game mechanics in the story that are followed, including using items. The main character has to collect an army and figure out how to make them powerful enough to oppose the players. And again, she uses some very nice, interesting, and well thought out exploits and bugs to gain what she wants. I think in the novel, and the author description says that she was a game designer. So like it kind of shows through in the writing of it. Overall, it's a good KU read. Again, not really worth the purchase price to me. It's just a little expensive for the page count. But the NPC to game villain story was fresh enough that it was entertaining. Even if the story was a little bit on the shorter side for our genre. For me, good score of 7.4 out of 10. Had a good time with it. For another online, All Hail the Queen with a score of 7.4 out of 10. Okay, our next segment is Ian's Picks of the Week. Ian Mitchell is a longtime LitRPG community member who reads and reviews just as much as me. He was nice enough to agree to join our podcast family as a new reviewer. And this week he has 3 reviews for you folks to enjoy at home. And that's going to include, I'm going to start off with War Chief, a Tusk and Blade story written by Lavelle Jackson. This is kind of a side story, if I'm not mistaken. Ian's review is quick. It says, examination of pain, short and fairly well executed, some torture and spawn camping. It's not a happy story. It starts out that way. I'm glad that I read it. He gives it a score of 8 out of 10. So there you go. Also from Ian this week, we have Life Reset, Human Resources, New Online, book number 1, which I reviewed a previous podcast. But this is Ian's review. Ian's review, it says, super green. Although I enjoyed book number 4, it didn't feel as much intensity or threat this time. Getting Orin back in his Dark Totem saddle again made it worth it. I enjoyed seeing the Goblin Horde swarm a town. That was great. Fans of the series will like this one. Up the voltage. Score 8 out of 10. So you actually like this one even more than the last one. And his last review that he sent into the show is Dungeon World book number 5, a Dungeon Core experience written by Jonathan Brooks. And he says, Ian's review is Fred's finale. This was a tasty conclusion to Dungeon World. Fred really made this series work for me. I had fun. A nice distraction while stuck at home, like the rest of the world. And he gives it a score of 8.2 out of 10. That's Dungeon World book number 5 with a score of 8.2 out of 10 from Ian. And again, as a kind of a correlation, Ian's reviews are generally about a point higher than mine for the same kind of opinion on a story. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to correlate our particular scoring systems. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast and to the show. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, and our webpage at LitRPGpodcast.com. And of course, if you want to support the podcast in any shape or form, you can find all the ways to do so at LitRPGpodcast.com/support. And of course, you can also just buy the book. It's out now. Go enjoy it. Definitely. And if you enjoy it, leave a review, because that's really going to genuinely helps other reviewers find it, because Amazon's whole AI formulas and things that they do, take a look at those things and they see more reviews, it must be popular. We'll give it some, more notice to other people. So it really does help. And again, thanks for hanging out with me, ladies and gentlemen. Until we can hang out again, remember to read some Lit RPG. Goodbye, everybody.